Hello, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to do something that I think is a little bit ignored in the aerial world. We don't focus on it as much as we should, which is the hair that is in my mouth. We should focus on that more. It's so windy today, my hair is just attacking me. That's why it's up today where it's normally down when I train. But what we're focusing on today is different routes to getting up to the top of the hoop and for coming down. I think that quite often we tend to just have one mount to go up to the top of the hoop, and then we just use that all the damn time. And I think that's a little bit boring. I think we should have multiple routes. I think we should have multiple options and a wide vocabulary of moves. So today I'm going to show you guys some of my favorite simple ways to go up and down from the top bar of the hoop. And I think that's about all there is to say. So let's get to it. Let's get on the hoop. We're going to do this today in little combos, so one move going up, one move coming down to make a nice little chunk of choreography, which of course you could then split apart and put some extra moves in the middle on the top bar before doing the coming down move at the end. We're going to kick things off with a combo of my favorite way up to the top bar, a stag push-up, followed by a modified back balance to come down. For the stag push-up, you're going to start by lifting one hip and tucking the opposite foot underneath it with the top of your ankle resting on the bottom of the hoop. Next, lean your shoulders back and hook the free leg's heel on the top of the hoop very close to the span set. From here, I'm ready to pull with my top leg, push with my bottom leg, and move my hips up to the center of the hoop at the same time as I'm hooking my top knee onto the top bar of the hoop. Finally, I'm going to gently, emphasis on gently so the hoop doesn't rebound, unhook my bottom leg, bring it through my arms to the front, straighten it, that's very important aesthetically, and then rehook it on the top bar, and I am nicely hooked onto the top bar in my beautiful hawk position here. To come down, I'm going to go into a back balance on the middle of my back by reaching up with my hands, taking the sides of the hoop about halfway up, and then gently sliding my legs down the top of the hoop, leaving my feet in front. You can cross your feet or cross your legs if you prefer. And I'm putting the hoop on the middle of my back, so I have a nice balance here that I can relax, take a breath. If I need to rest in my choreography, this is a great moment to do it. It looks pretty, but it's also a nice rest position. And finally, I can slide my legs over to the side, coming into cradle, and I'm all done. I'm back on the bottom. Here's that mini combo again with a few pro tips. My first pro tip is really aesthetic. It's to make sure you're dropping your head back in this stag position. It's just going to make the whole thing look more finished and beautiful than if you're looking up with your head. Also, make sure to straighten that leg before you hook it on. It does make a big aesthetic difference there. Coming down, I'm going to make sure that I am using my abs to control the movement as always. Also, when you're transitioning from that back balance into the cradle, make sure that you bring your legs forward to be able to slide them gracefully into the cradle position. You want to bring them a little towards your face and then hook them on the side of the hoop. For combo number 2, we're going to use a flying Russian split to go up and a straddle drop to come down. I'll start with a quick disclaimer that the flying Russian split can feel a little scary the first times that you do it. But remember that basically all you're doing is hanging from your hands. Speaking of your hands, you're going to put them wider than your hips on the top bar of the hoop. Then you're going to lean your shoulders back and slide down to your knees on the bottom bar. I'm placing one foot, which will become the back leg of my split, in the center of the bottom bar, either the ball of my foot or the middle of my foot, not the heel. Then I pass my opposite leg through my arms. At the same time, I am pulling up with my arms, I'm arching my back, and I'm bringing my hips up as high as possible. High hips are the goal here. They are very, very integral to having a nice position in the air. Finally, I'm going to hook my front leg on the top of the hoop, and then once again, very gently, I'm going to take off my back leg. You want to be gentle so that the hoop does not rebound. You can see also I bent my knee before I removed my foot from the hoop. I pass it through my arms, and again, I straighten that leg before I hook it on and rehook on the top of the hoop, coming down into my hocks. For the straddle drop, Even though it's called a drop, don't think drop, think controlled descent, because you want to be in control of this one to protect your shoulders. It's a really simple movement. All I'm going to do is reach up with my hands, place them on either side of the span set between my knees. You do need space between your knees for this one, so you might have to wiggle your knees open slightly before you go into it. Then I'm going to use my abs, use my arms, use all the muscles in my body to control my body as I open up my legs and slowly come down. From there, I'm going to be hanging behind the hoop by my hands, so I can use this old gym by just sliding my knee through the bottom of the hoop, straightening my leg, and coming into this little half split position from which I can lever myself back into a seated position in the center of the hoop. Both of these shapes are pretty straightforward, so my pro tips are pretty straightforward also. Get those hips up in the flying Russian. Also arch your back and look down with your head, and bend your knee so you can release the hoop with control. You don't want to rebound like it did right there. And as with anything where we're going down in a straddle like this, you don't actually need to have a crazy flat center split. I'm actually keeping my legs in a V and pushing the hoop away from me with my legs as I go down. That means that I don't need a super huge amount of flexibility for this. Combo number 3 is going to be standing up simply and gracefully. It is simple, but it is important. And a clock split drop to come down. Being able to stand up gracefully on the hoop is so important, especially if you want to do all these span set moves that are really popular right now. So I'm going to reach up with one hand. Notice how I'm doing big circles with my arms to reach up and grab the span set. That's a nice little extra detail. Next, I'm going to slide my hips out the back and then place one foot, then the other on the center of the hoop. Now, this is a very important part. I'm going to straighten my knees, straighten out my whole body, drop my head slightly back, and make a beautiful long line with my whole body here, pulling my hips up, and at the last moment, walking my hands up one little step so I can come into a nice vertical standing position. Once I'm here, I'm just standing up there pretty comfortably so I can play around a little bit. I'm putting on an elbow, I'm using my other arm to make some fun shapes. But enough standing, let's get back to hawks. I'm going to take off one leg and circle it around behind me to the side and finally to the front so I can hook it onto the hoop close to the span set. Next, I'm going to really be very attentive to how the hoop is moving because the hoop's going to move a lot as I take my weight off of it and use my other leg to hook on the top of the hoop also. Be prepared for the hoop to move. It's normal. Do this a little bit quick also so the hoop can't get away from you. I strongly advise practicing this transition at a low height and over a mat because the hoop is going to move unexpectedly. You want to get used to that before you move higher. Next up, coming from this nice, beautiful, convenient hawks position, I'm going to go into my clock split by placing one hand between my knee and the span set and the other hand on the outside of my other knee. I'm going to take my knee that is outside of my hands, for me that is my right knee, straighten the leg, and like the hand of a clock, hence the name, go all the way around the hoop to the bottom. Similar to the straddle down that we just did, you're pushing the hoop away from you with your legs, so you don't need to have a crazy amount of flexibility for this, but I do recommend warming up your hips because you're doing a very circular motion with your hip. Once my leg is down at the bottom, I can pull with my hands, drop my head back, arch my back, and straighten my front leg. Finally, we're going to come down to the bottom bar simply by sliding down that front leg, letting your hips come down, letting that leg slide down the hoop, and hooking it onto the bottom bar. Simple but beautiful. A couple of pro tips for this one. My first pro tip is to keep your hips facing the hoop as you stand up. Once your hips start to go side to side, you're going to lose some control of the hoop. And the most important thing in this whole standing up sequence is to keep control of the hoop as much as possible. Also, try to be as vertical as you can. That means having your hands slightly higher than your waist, at least, if not higher than that. And thinking about how that hoop's going to move and moving that second leg quickly. You can see my hoop jumping around a little bit there. That's normal, but you want to try to keep in control of the hoop as much as possible there. And then coming into this clock split and drop combo. This is something I use a lot in choreography because I find that audiences always really react to it. And it's not that difficult strength-wise to do, so it's a great move to put, for example, at the end of a routine, at the end of choreography, where you want something that's going to stand out to your audience, but is not that difficult to do when you're tired. Remember to arch your back and tilt your head back as far as possible to have a beautiful line in this position. And for our final combo today, we're going to do a really useful way to get to the top because it's a transition for a lot of other moves. It's the skirt, followed by a simple little drop to front balance. The skirt's a really nice transition because not only is it cool in itself, but it's also really important for a lot of other moves that you do later on because it's going to set you up with your hips behind the top bar. Of course, you can always use just muscle power to get into it, doing basically a pullover mount and putting your hips onto the top bar, but I prefer this little sliding up the span set version because I think it's quite fun to watch. I'm going to lean my shoulders back, almost straightening my arms, reach up with a straight leg and wrap my toes around the front of the span set. Getting those toes hooked on the front is very important. This is one of the few times you can sickle your foot or turn your ankle inwards. You can see I'm doing here. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with my second leg. I am hooking my toes over each other to give myself a little lock there. Then I'm going to pull with my arms, lift up my hips, and slide my feet, still with straight legs, up the span set as far as possible, lifting those hips high. I'm trying to get as vertical as I can here, and notice that I'm dropping my head back, looking out away from the hoop and not up towards my toes, because if you lift your head to look up, it's going to look awkward. Next, I'm going to use my toes to push off the front of the span set as I do a little baby pull-up with my arms, bringing the hoop into my hip crease. It's important to have the hoop as high up on your hips as possible here, with the span set really coming through your crotch area, and throwing your legs into the front, pushing them down. Again, you want to have your toes lower than the bar of the hoop for security reasons, the exact same as when you do a knee hang or an elbow hang. And I can let go with my hands and really just milk this beautiful skirt position. I really like this. It's a really, really nice transition just all by itself. This is the moment I was talking about earlier where your hips are behind the bar. Again, this is a position you're going to need for a lot of other moves. But for now, we're talking about moving into and out of hawks on the top bar. So let's look at that. Let's look how to get into a hawks from here. I'm going to place my hands on the top bar, hook one leg around the span set coming from the back still, and circle my other leg out and around behind me. Then you can probably see what's coming here, pass my leg through to the front, straighten my knee, and hook it on in a hawks. Now, although this is basically the same movement we've done several times already today, you want to be careful with this one because you do have to slightly unhook your span set leg to have the space to pass through your second leg. So just bear in mind that is going to happen. There's going to be a moment here where you're basically controlling the hoop only with your hands. You're not going to have a knee hooked on, holding your weight. Once I've got that first knee hooked on, I can release my former span set leg entirely, bring it to the front, straighten that knee, and hook it on again, coming into my hawks. There it is. We found the hawk. Finally, we're going to come down to the bottom bar with a really simple, I'm gonna call it a drop, but it's not really a drop. It is actually quite a controlled movement, but if you do it fast, it looks like a drop. I'm gonna start out by passing my head and shoulders to the back of my hoop. You can really milk this little transition if you want. You can straighten your arms, you can do a head roll, you can lift your head to the back, you could even do one arm on the hoop. It's a really nice little moment to play with. Then I'm going to pass my hands through to the front of the hoop. So I don't want them behind the hoop like this. I want them to go through to the front and take the sides of the hoop with my palms facing backwards so I can kick off my legs and come down to my hip crease. It looks like a drop because of the leg movement, but actually with your hands on your hoop and your weight in your arms, you should be in control the whole time.
Like I said before, this skirt mount is really useful. You need it for a lot of moves, and I really love this sliding up the span set version of it because it's just like you raise up into the air. I think it's quite dramatic. I think it's quite fun. Be sure that you are keeping your legs organized here. What I mean by that is that you're showing every position of your legs, even if you're going through them quickly, and making it very clear what you're doing. You don't want to get like muddled legs, like, oh, I'm just moving them just for the transition. You want to be showing off your legs the whole time. And then finally, for this little drop down, try it slow a few times, but then try it a little faster. Make it look like a more impressive drop. This is another thing that audiences really respond to.
Well, there you go. That was several different ways, up and down from the top bar of the hoop. And remember that aerial hoop and aerial in general is hugely about creativity and making your own style. So if you guys think of a little tweak, or if you know a different way up to the top of the hoop, or if you have a different variation on one of these moves, I would love to see it. So check me out on Instagram, send me a little message with your version. That would be pretty cool. Or comment in this video as well, and I'll see it. I think it's really important to develop your own style and to feel like you are unique, because everyone is unique. You are unique, and you should show that in your aerial practice and your aerial routines. Apart from that, I'm just going to remind you guys to please do subscribe to this channel, because we've got more videos like this coming out all the time. So many videos, especially now that I've been doing this channel for like 3 years. Wow. There's a lot of tutorials over there, so don't miss out. Subscribe, and also if you could like this video, if you enjoyed it, that would be pretty cool as well. And with that, I will see you guys next time.